Hey, Tom here. Sorry about those difficulties. Anyways, looks like we got a good connection. We're live again. So we were going to talk about gurus and Grant Cardone. Now, I don't know if he refers to himself as a guru or not. But like I said, I'd watched some of his stuff, or I watched one of his programs, and he was talking about apartments particularly. And he was saying, he was kind of advising people not to buy a home. I guess he was saying that he rents. Of course, he was referencing a $30 million home that he's renting, which would be an expensive one to own and keep for sure. But maybe just in the sense that he's talking about. Hey, Raheem, glad to have you. You know, for starting, if you're going to invest in multifamily, you know what? I bought apartment buildings. Wasn't the first thing I ever bought, but it was a good investment. I bought apartment buildings. You know, there was just a huge glut of them in Texas for a while, and you could buy them so cheap you just couldn't believe it. I mean, I bought apartment buildings for $10,000 a unit, held them for a while, and sold them for $55,000 a unit. Made a lot of money, and if I was going to guess, Grant Cardone, I'll bet you probably owns quite a few of those in Texas, because there's a lot of deals on apartments in Texas over the last 25 years. So what I was going to say, though, one of the things he was advising about was, first of all, I want to say, from what I've heard and listened to talk to about Grant Cardone, he seems like the real deal. I'm going to watch some more of his stuff, and I'll probably comment some more on him. But he's a little older than I am. Not by much, but you know, but I can tell right away he seems passionate about what he's talking about, and he's a salesman and all that, and I'm a salesman too, and it helps. It helps. I don't sell books. I don't sell anything other than like I say, I'm just happy to share what I've got and share how I've done it. I love what I do, and I know a lot of you guys are going to be in the same shoes as I am in no time, and you know, just investing in general is just a great way to go. So he was talking about apartment buildings, though, and saying saying he wouldn't live, you know, he rents, he'd rather rent than buy. Well, look, you know what, owning a home is a privilege, no question, but you know, as long as you're living within your means, I think buying a home, you know, that's going to cost you about the same to rent, then you might as well just own it. There's no reason not to. Then again, also investing in homes, I would say that it's a great investment for you to buy it, but it's like I always tell you, you got to buy it right. You got to buy it under market and then flip it. Now, if you buy a house, I would agree with Grant Cardone on as much as don't buy houses for rentals, because you may very well be speculating on the idea that they're going to go down in value, and if you hold something long enough, you know what, they do go down. But if you buy it right in the market where things are below market, you know, you can flip it, and it doesn't matter if you're in a depressed market relative to what things are selling for. If you buy it for under market, you're going to be able to turn it, flip it, and make some money. You know, as far as apartments go, you know, I did buy them, and I bought them with the idea that they would, you know, go up in value, but I also bought them because they were cash flowing, and I was able to keep raising the rents as the economy got better. And the other good thing about apartments is that, unlike houses are kind of valued on emotion. In other words, people decide they love this area, the values go up, they bid it with each other, it goes up and up and up, the values go up, you pay higher taxes on that property. Where multifamily is like commercial, which I love commercial property too, and industrial and office, because the value is based on the return on investment. In other words, guys that are competing for buying you know, multifamily apartments and others, they're basing it on an income, what the income brings. On houses, it's a whole different story. They're bidding on them and based on emotion, on how much maybe they want to live in that neighborhood, or maybe the schools and that sort of thing. But don't for a second, you know, shortchange yourself you see an opportunity to buy a house under market, like I say, you buy a house under market, you can flip it, you can, you know, put yourself into another $50, $60, $100,000. Like I said earlier, you know, the last 2 houses I bought, I probably, you know, I haven't turned them yet, but I mean, with confidence, I can say I've got more than $250,000 equity between the two. Probably 200 just on that lake house, which I'll be taking you out there again soon. I got to tile the top floor. I hadn't gotten around to doing that yet. Like I said, I got kids out of school. I got one in Europe, and just trying to take a little vacation too, which I've did with most of my kids, all but one. So anyways, okay, how do you get a crew together to fix up a house? Okay, good question. First of all, I'm a pretty handy guy myself, although to be honest, I don't do much of it anymore at all. But if I have to, I can. But I don't. But so if you're kind of handy, it's good to learn how to get handy. If you're not, you know, anybody can pound some nails and, you know, get a screw gun, you know, and paint. Not everybody's a good painter. It looks easier than it is, and it looks funner than it is too. But you need to get some of those basic skills yourself. And you know, if you're getting a first-time buyer and you get something you want to clean up, listen, number one thing is scrub. Just make those windows as shiny and sparkly as you possibly can. And you know, and then, you know, you can paint too. Some people, you know, they can cut in beautifully with a nice horsehair brush. You can cut in beautifully. If you get a cheap brush, you can't cut in so well, but people use, you know, masking tape, the blue tape that peels off easy. You can certainly do that yourself. But in general, if you can find somebody that's got some painting skills, that's always good. But for getting a crew together, look, I have a full-time crew. I have 3 guys work for me full-time. That's all they do is work on my property. That's it. And sometimes I have way more than they can do. And then I hire subs, plumbers, drywallers, framers, anybody else. I hire those guys. So when you talk about getting a crew together, if you get to the point where you can justify people, you start with just one real handy guy that, you know, kind of a handyman that kind of do a little of everything, and then you know, you'll know by seeing them work. Now, if you're talking about hiring people just to do one job, then you know you need to rely on references, and you know, because if you're not a carpenter, like I'm a carpenter, I'm a contractor, I know the right questions to ask, and so it's hard to bullshit me because I know. And but if you're in that area where you don't know, like give you an example. I mean, I've been hiring app developers. I've got a big beautiful app I'm making. I've already got several $100,000 invested in it, and I could be swindled in that area because I don't have that background. So as a somebody that is, you know, looking for a carpenter or looking for a, you know, a finish man or a, you know, a drywaller or somebody to texture, then all right, hey Joe Schmo, good to hear it, man. I'm a carpenter too, man. I owned a cabinet shop for 10 years, and you know, built many houses and buildings. So again, you got to know the right questions to ask, but if you don't have that background, then just you rely on references. You talk to people. You know, if you have somebody, hey, all right, Chaz, good, glad to hear it, man. So you know, and see if you're already a carpenter, if you're already, whether like Chaz's drywall hanger, you know, he knows. It is, even if he doesn't do mud, he knows the right guys to contact. And when you've got that presence of being on a job, you know, you see the guys in town. The guys that you see most often on the job, those are the good guys, because it's the guys you see one time and you don't see again. They probably burned a bridge and then you don't see them anymore. But so you'll kind of know who the good guys are if you're already in the business. You know who to call. I got welders. I got all kinds of people that I know, and usually I discover them on a job. I see them either working for somebody else and go over and ask for a card and talk to them. Oh, well, okay, well, how I got started as a carpenter, that was simple. I needed a job, and so I took the first job I could get, and first it was making $2 an hour, helping a carpenter, and now also a drywaller, and carrying drywall, and you know, and then pretty soon I was cutting and learning to read a tape and keeping my fingers out of a skill saw, and not so lucky, I actually have a short thumb there on the right. I cut my thumb off once in a table saw, and that was a lot of fun. But anyways, Yeah. So, yeah, if you're young, I mean, heck, go. Ask to go see if you can go to work for a carpenter, and you know, you'll learn a lot. But so back to you know, the gurus and stuff. It's funny, you know, Chaz, Dave Delgado was a drywaller out of Fresno, California, and he used to have a program. He'd be on TV. He had bought a house in Hawaii, and he'd stand on the ocean shore, and he had a little grandstand, just a little kind of stand, about 20 people, and he'd sit there and explain his course. And then at the end of the show, he'd sell about, you know, he'd sell $100,000 worth of books. And I actually don't know exactly how much money he's made in real estate. I don't think it's nearly as much as he led people to believe, but nevertheless, he was a good motivator. And but I think it is very, very helpful. There's, like I said, back to gurus. A lot of the guys that say they know a lot, they really don't have the experience they claim to have. And I can see through it on some of them, obviously. There was a guy, Carlton Sheets. He used to have a program he'd run on you know, late night, and I actually bought the course. And although I didn't see a whole lot of evidence that he, you know, had done a lot of what he was doing, the course actually had some decent little files in it. And I don't know if he created them or not. What really bothered me about Sheets, and he could be dead now. He's a pretty old guy at the time, but is he had his infomercial with like a Rolls Royce. And as his Rolls Royce is driving and turned, I froze frame it, and on the front of his car, he had what looked like a personalized plate that said Sheets 1. But as you turned it, there was a regular license plate on the back, and I thought, I don't think he owns that car. I think he had a phony personalized plate on the front. But nevertheless, you know what? I think that course I paid $149 for, and I didn't really consider it much of a course. But there was actually some good information in there. There actually was some good information. There's actually a contract in there that wasn't bad, and it didn't have everything. But I think really the best thing you can get is, now we got YouTube. We didn't have that back then. Is when you can sit here and ask questions from somebody like me that's already done so much, and you know, it comes through. You know, it means a lot more, I think, when you hear it from somebody that's actually been through it and done it. Even if I tell you, you know, hey, don't worry about it, you know, just it's not as complicated as it seems. And believe me, that's exactly, it isn't as complicated as it seems. And sometimes, you know, making an analogy is a good way to soften the blow for people to understand. And like I say, with real estate, you look at it like it's just like buying a car. You know, you buy a car, you know, you don't own it. The title doesn't transfer till you go down to your Department of Motor Vehicles, and then they, you know, they handle it and they say, okay, this is officially yours. If you borrowed money from a bank, then there's a lien holder on your title, right? And that's how that works. And guess what? It's the same thing with a house. You going down there, instead of the Department of Motor Vehicles, it's, you know, it's an escrow company and a title company, and they're going to transfer the title, and they're going to show that there's this lien holder, probably a bank that you borrowed money from, and it's a way so that you can't sell the house, or with the DMV, it's a way you can't sell the car. You can't deliver clear title because it's encumbered with this debt. So it is, don't be afraid of real estate. Don't be afraid. In fact, you should be afraid to not have any, because the beauty of real estate is, this is the simple way to look at it. And really, well, particularly with real estate, it generally goes up in value, okay? Number two is, it's something that you can leverage into, meaning you can buy something for $50,000 or $100,000, and you only have to put a portion of that down. So let's just say real estate goes up on average, say, you know, 8% a year. And it's not every year. Sometimes it goes up more than that, sometimes less than that. Let's just say a piece of real estate goes up 8% a year. So we'll say $100,000 property. You buy yourself a $100,000 property. So, and let's say you buy it for, you know me, I like to buy everything under market. But let's just start here. Let's just say you bought it for face value, $100,000, and that's what it's worth. Well, but you put $10,000 down, and a bank or somebody carried a note and carried that other $90,000, and now you're paying an interest rate, say of 4% on the $90,000, and you put the cash down, $10 the 10%. So now you're getting, if you're paying 4% on the 90,000, that's costing you like $3,600 a year to borrow that. But on that 90,000, if you get 8% interest on that, then you've made you've made $7,200. So basically, you've made $3,600 just on this. Even though you borrowed most of the money, you still made $3,600 in that year when it appreciated 8%. Now, additionally, you've made another 8% on the 10 grand that you put down. So you made another $800 there. So now you made $4,400 a year, or basically on the 90,000 that you borrowed. So that's $4,400 you'd have never had if it wasn't for real estate. Now, if you bought it under market and you bought it for $20,000 under market, now you made $20,000 on it in equity the day you bought it, and if you held it for a year, then you picked up another $4 grand. So, again, you can never get hurt taking a profit. I strongly urge you to look at land, look at houses. You can look at multifamily, duplexes, that sort of thing, and flip them. Just flip them. And if you get to the point where you flip enough stuff that you got 50, 100 grand in the bank, are ready to go, then you can go pay cash for something, and then you can just let that thing, be a source of income to you. But always keep, if you got 100, don't maybe put 50 down on something, or maybe, if you feel better, you pay cash 50 for something. Hang on to that other 50. That's your seed capital, so you can go and put down. Say, Joe Schmo, part I'm afraid of is finding the buyer. Something tied up. Okay, Joe, are you saying you're afraid of not being able to find a buyer? Is that what you're afraid of? Because you're not going to have that fear if you find a property. And I say you have to know what values are worth. You have to know value. If everything in the neighborhood, if the last couple of houses sold for 100 grand in your neighborhood, and then you find one you can buy for 60 or 70, you know by comparison, especially you said you're a carpenter, you can look at it, you can judge the value of the condition of this property. So if you can buy it for 70, and everything else that is comparable to that is selling for 100, there's $30,000 there to play with. So don't hesitate. Buy the damn thing if that's what you can do. Buy it, put it right back on the market, and then, like I say, you can sell it for 10% off and make 20. And here's the deal. Once you get going, you're going to feel comfortable. Just think about anything that you were ever afraid of doing, and that once you did it, you know what? It was easy. It's like skateboarding. You get on skateboarding, you trip, you get hurt a few times, you're kind of terrified in the beginning, but pretty soon you get it, and then you're going, okay, no problem, I got this. And then all of a sudden it seems much easier. Or riding a bike, everything seems a little tougher in the beginning than it is, and a lot of people would like you to think it's tough. I'm opening up the doors. I don't need the competition, and I got people probably locally that are watching me, might be watching this right now, and so I'm careful. I share a lot of deals, but I don't share a deal before I have it, right? I usually, I'll say I'm working on something in kind of vague terms, and then once I have it tied up and signed, then I don't mind, putting it on here just in case somebody local is watching me. Okay, Chaz, how about a double close if you don't have the money to buy? All right, so you can do double close, okay? And I've done it before. Okay, wait, yes, I don't have a lot of capital. They are between 13. Dang, I'm sorry, Chaz. I missed part of that, man. This thing comes up, and then it disappears. And I looked away from it. You may have to repost that one. So, back to your first question. And I got a short memory here. But, you're going to have to give it to me again, Chaz. I already forgot. It's been a long day. I'm a little tired. Oh, double close. So on a double close, like I say, if you got a double close, just, have the person that's buying it from you, if you can, just assign it to them for a fee. That's the best thing you can do. If you're, presumably you're saying you got it sold while you're buying it. You can do it. You can structure it. You go into escrow with both of them. Just word it carefully with the guy that you're selling it to, that, you know, this is contingent on something that you can bail out of in case something goes south with your purchase. But, you know, so he's talking about a double close. If you don't know what a double close is, we're talking about having a property that you're going to buy, and before you bought it, before you put out the big bucks to buy it, you have somebody else that's buying it from you. Now it gets a little tricky, and it's good to know your title officer, you know, or your escrow office, because you have to explain to them, you know, hey, look, I'm buying this and I'm selling this at the same time. So we're going to have two escrows, and simultaneously, hopefully with only one payment for the title report, or the title policy. So you have to talk to your title company about that too, because you don't want to pay for a title policy on your purchase and on the simultaneous closing. If you have to, maybe you can afford to, but basically what Chaz is talking about is setting it up where somebody's buying it from you, a property that you don't own yet, because you don't have the money to put down on it. Maybe you have the deposit covered, but now you're getting ready to close it. So what happens is you need the person that's buying from you to put his money in escrow so that that money can be used to close your deal where you're buying it, but at the same time, simultaneously, it's also closing the other deal. So that money comes in, it closes both deals. It satisfies the guy you're buying it from, but it's also enough to satisfy your sale, covers your profit. You can do it. You can do it. You know, but ideally, you know, you can. There's workarounds that too. You can do it that way, but you could also probably just simply do an assignment, and you know, just say it's understood you're going to buy this, and upon closing, I'm going to get this, and you know, get creative with it. That's the beauty about real estate and making contracts and deals, guys. There really are no rules. I mean, obviously there's some laws, but as far as getting creative, writing a contract and making a deal, you know, these guys that do what they call wholesaling, this Ty, I mean, he goes down there, he ties one up that he's going to buy, and finds a buyer, like you're saying, and then he's bringing somebody that wants to buy from him to a house that's being shown, and there's somebody living there, and then the owner, the landlord's getting there, and somehow he pulls it off. Doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me, and I'm glad I'm not doing those kinds of deals, to be honest, but to his credit, you know, and that's Ty. If you would look up flipman.net on YouTube, real nice guy, real interesting guy, and he's operating in his area, I think in Alabama, and he's been having some success. So, but for me, I like to put a deposit down and know that there's $20, $30, $40, $100,000 profit sitting there. And then, now of course I have the ability to close, but there's been times when I haven't. And I'm telling you, if you don't worry about it. Just get it tied up with the deposit, and then go knock it. You can call me. You can even call me. You know what? I'll get on. I'll take a look at Zillow. I'll take a look at the neighborhood. I'll make a judgment for myself, and then I'll fly out. I mean, if you're in another state, I'll fly there in a heartbeat if I think I can make, you know, 40 grand, 100 grand, whatever, and I won't split it with you. But what I'll do is I'll give you, you know, maybe $5,000, $10,000, or maybe $50,000, depending on how great a deal it is. But you don't even need to go this far. Go to me. But you could. But you could also just simply find somebody that's in your town that's successful, that has money. It could be another real estate broker or somebody in town that invests in real estate that has money. So anyways, Chaz, did I take care of your question? It seemed like you had another one come right behind that. And you were talking about some 10 rules of Grant Cardone. And I'm sorry, guys, I got a drink here. I got to take a sip on. All right, well, hey, on that point, we're talking about drinking. So, I probably have a drink almost every day after work or sometime in the evening. Not every day, but sometimes. I'm not saying anybody should drink. In fact, I'll tell you right now, I think in general you shouldn't drink. Of course, right out of high school, and being young, of course, we had kegers, we did things like that, we drank. But in all honesty, the buddies of mine that smoked pot and drank. I mean, listen, when you're young, man, you got energy. And I fortunately, okay. Joe had another question that I think you missed, but 10 Times Rule was the book by Grant. I've read a few times. It is great. Okay, so according to Chaz, he's seen a book by Grant Cardone called the 10 Times Rule, and he endorses it as a good book. And knowing what I know of Chaz, it sounds like there are. Okay. So anyhow, on that note, though, he recommends the book, and I've had some going back and forth a little bit with Chaz, and I like Chaz, so I appreciate his opinion on that. Probably is a decent book, so you guys might want to take a look at that. I actually wrote a book once, and it ended up getting me audited by the IRS, and so I may release it someday, but it was called Wake Up and Smell the Real Estate. Yeah, it's here, but it's not in print. But I may work on that again someday. But anyways, Kristen asked about getting into a bind on, flipping a contract. Well, you can get yourself in a bind, Kristen. You gotta word things carefully. Don't write down. You can get very creative with a contract, but just don't write anything that's not true. Don't write anything that puts you in a pickle or puts you in a situation. In other words, don't say, I don't know, people get themselves in a pickle. They do. I'm very careful. If I write something, I never write down what I can't do. You know what I mean? Or I don't misrepresent anything. That I don't represent that I own something if I don't. You gotta word things carefully sometimes. But as long as you're buying and the buyer's getting what he wants, which is get paid off in the time agreed with you, and then somebody else identifies that you've got something they want, which is the deal, then really it's pretty easy to work out. Like I say, I keep telling you, I got my studio all done. It's beautiful. But now I'm finally starting to get a little time where I can start to get in there and start playing with it that way. But what else? What else you got there? Any burning questions? Oh, back to alcohol. I was talking about alcohol. I really think it robs you. I tell my kids, if I really didn't even really start drinking until I was in my 30s, to be honest. I had a 6-pack of beer. I tell all my kids, like I said, when I moved, I had a 6-pack of beer that was in my fridge for really, I think it was maybe 3 to 5 years, and I'd pull a beer out if somebody wanted to have a drink that happened to be over. But so I really, now, I switch up. Sometimes I drink really, really good wine, Napa Cabs, and then sometimes I start to get headaches from it, and I leave that alone. And I've taken to whiskey. I've owned a bar, and it's funny. I had a bar, and I hardly even drank. I was a sports bar, and I didn't really watch sports either. I've never cared much for watching millionaires play. It drives me crazy because I'd be watching sports, and I'm thinking, I'm watching millionaires making money right now, playing on the field, and I'm sitting here watching. I can't do it. I just can't do it. And I understand if you love sports, you do enjoy it. I don't. I watch it and I just think these guys are making money and I'm watching them. I can't stand it. I got to make some money. Oh, Chaz, yeah. Okay, whiskey recommendations. Okay, this is only for you guys over 30, okay? Because I tell you what, I tell my kids right now, don't drink. Don't think about smoking pot. You're going to have to run that back to me, Hyrick, a little later. But don't drink. Don't smoke weed because it robs you of energy. You'll find out when you get over 40, you start to get a little more tired. I mean, not a lot. And then when you get 50, again, and then here's the other thing. You have money and you're tired. It's real easy to get lazy when you have money and you're tired, okay? But that's where you want to be. You want to get to where you can be lazy, afford to be lazy. So I tell my kids, I say, yeah, look, boys, I said I have a drink. I enjoy having a drink once in a while. I don't drink too much. I don't drink and drive, but I tell them this will rob you. It will rob you of your energy that you need to go the extra mile. I mean, I used to After work, that's when I would go back to work as an investor. After 5, I would be watching the neighborhoods and making phone calls, and I'm a very diligent, hard worker. And if I was having a drink or having a happy hour instead of making those calls, I wouldn't be getting anywhere, And now here I am, I've been very comfortable for many, many years. Really, when I was 28, I had already made my first million. So, it'll rob you. So I just tell you, don't fool yourself. If you haven't already made the money you want to make, back off on the drinking, man. I would just say leave it alone. And pot too. I mean, I know some people, they can drink and they can smoke and maybe they can, hex them up. But pot, I mean, you might as well just give me a shot of, something that makes you stupid. Because pot, I can't even be around people that smoke it. Just the secondhand smoke would make me, just kind of go dumb. And so I just tell anybody, don't drink, don't smoke. That's all I'll say on that. Until you have what you want, until you have the money and you're where you want to be. Other than, obviously, there's a time and a place. And right now, mine's right now while I talk to you. So, anyhow, Heinrich, if you want to throw that question back to me, buddy, I'll look at it. I'm trying to watch the screen at the same time. Oh, whiskey recommendations, Chaz. Yeah, I'll tell you what I like. I like B&H, Basil Hayden. Very good, very good. That's probably my favorite. Although, when I make an old-fashioned like I have here, I'll, if I'm not at home, then I will use, I'll bullet. I like rye, by the way, so I'll get a Whiskey Pig rye or a Bullet rye or a Woodford rye. And again, I might not even be drinking these in another 6 months because that's what happens. I drink and then I get tired of it and then I change gears altogether or I just don't drink anymore. But I'll tell you something also. If you get an old-fashioned, I recommend Fee, F-E-E, Fee Brothers bitters. They make the bitters because I like extra bitters in my old-fashions. And Fee Brothers actually has a wonderful set of them, but they're standard original, the cocktail bitters, have a little bit of cinnamon in them. They are quite delicious, and I enjoy those a lot too. So what else can we talk about? Anybody? All right. So let's see. We covered whiskey. Okay. Talk about apartments again. Let me tell you about apartments. They can be very expensive to manage and run. I'll give you an example. I had a 21 unit, and I had a 12 unit, and I had a 24 unit, 58 units, I think it was, all next to each other. Okay, lease or buy? Well, okay, I got a question here about lease or buy. I mean, if you're talking about your home for yourself, you know what? I was talking about Grant Cardone. He says he'd rather lease a house than buy a house, and I can relate to that in as much because I didn't live in the first 5, 6, 7 houses that I bought. I didn't live in them. I actually rented. I actually rented a little tiny house. I mean, I was hardly ever there. I didn't care. I had a house so small. Paid $125 a month. I had a house so small it was a 1-bedroom. That my waterbed, I had a waterbed back then, that my waterbed was bigger than the room. I actually had to get out my skill saw and I had to cut like 6, 8 inches off the sides of my waterbed and made it even smaller. And you walk into my bedroom and my bed touched 3 walls. That's how small my bedroom was. But I only paid $125 a month. But while I lived in that little tiny cheap rent house, I bought a 4-bedroom home, flipped and made money. I bought multiple little houses and a building, all while living there. And so, if you can live, I mean, if you don't already own a lot of real estate, if you can live cheaper by renting from somebody, if you get an exceptional deal, rent. And if you guys, if you're just watching, you got to watch my video where I show you how I made over $1 million renting. Okay. I made $1 million on a place that I rented. Okay, I rented a building for, started out $3,000 a month. The last rent payment I paid on that was $5,000 a month. I think I rented it for 7 years. And when I rented it, at first I was, even though I was paying $3,000 a month rent, I was subletting it, not even subletting it, I was re-renting the entire property for $20,000 a month. So I was making $17,000 a month in the beginning, and then my rent went from $3,000 to $5,000, and I raised the rent on my tenant to $25,000. And I made, you know, on average, I made about $20,000 a month for 7 years. Okay, so do the math on that. Just, you know, that's roughly $240,000 a year profit for 7 years. So that makes it about $1 million. I don't know, about $1.4 million. Okay, let's see. How do you source your deals? Okay, how do I find my deals? You said you're talking about direct mail. When you say source, are you asking me? I'm not sure when you say source my deals. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. If you're talking about how I find them, just keep watching all my videos. One of the main ways I find them is I'm the first person to call on the sign. I watch specific little geographic area around my home, everything in between my home and where I go to work and office. I look at everything in between. Now, I have done, oh, how do I find? Got you, Garrett. Okay, so there isn't any one way, but the main way, yeah, Raheem, let's come back to that one. Let me stick on this question first, because everybody wants to know how to find the deals. Okay, look, I've blanketed an area. I've sent out as many as 1,800 letters at a time, boom, one shot, saying, hey, I'm interested in buying your home. Would you like to sell me your property? Okay, I get those letters on my rentals that other people are doing too. And I'm going to get into this heavier with you guys. I almost, you know what, I'm almost starting to, I know I got a lot more people watching than have subscribed. And when I see that, it makes me think, you know what, there's some stuff I only want to share with my subscribers. You know, I just do. But I've got some really bulletproof, cool ways that, about when I do blanket an area, some specific wording that is awesome and helpful. And I'll share some of that, but yeah, you can mail out, but you want to do the most purest mailing you can. You want the most qualified leads within that. You know, you're spending 50 cents a head on these stamps, or, you know, more than that, probably 70 cents now by the time you figure it all in. So you really don't want to waste the money, right? You know, it's probably a hard pill for somebody to swallow, spend $1,500 on a mailing, right? I understand. But you can qualify those leads. And so what you want to do is, yeah, exactly. Garrett's got it. Mail to absentee owners. So an absentee owner means the owner doesn't live there, right? So that means you're sending it to a different address, not the address where the person is that's living in the property, but you're sending it to the owner of that property, because the owner owns it. And so that's why I say call on a for rent sign. So there you go, Garrett. You see a for rent sign, call on a for rent sign. Because if there's a for rent sign, the phone number is probably going to be the owner's phone number. There's an opportunity. He's going to go, you know, some people just stress, oh, no more money coming in. I hate it. I have to go find a new tenant. I'm going to have to clean up the house. And they worry. And then here's the other thing. Last time they checked the value of the property was probably 3 years ago. In their mind, it probably feels like it was 3 months ago, but the values have gone up. So you call on that for rent sign. You say, hey, maybe I can buy this thing. So, and then make your deal, and you know, so that, but that's perfect, Garrett. Call on for rent signs. That's another good way. Call on for rent signs. If you're going to send out your letters, of course, send to absentee owners. The other thing is, how long has that absentee owner own that property? How long has he owned that property? You can see that information. You can get that information. You can. Hey guys, come on, keep it relevant to the topic, please. Anyways, you look at what's going on. look at how long that absentee owner has owned that property, because if he just bought it a year ago or 3 years ago, he probably owns it, 20 years or more. Well, that's fine, Garrett. You can look for 20 years, but don't let that stop you. I would say 6-8 years or more. The reason I tell you that is a lot can happen in 6 or 8 years. They could have paid it off. They may have paid cash for it anyways. But again, 6 or 8 years, there a lot of appreciation can happen in that much time. So the point is, you don't want to contact somebody too soon after they bought it, because chances are they owe too much on it. They're not even going to be able to make a great deal on it. If you wait 20 years, you know what? Everything I buy everything in about 10 to 15-year mortgages, okay? I don't like to do 20-year mortgages or 30-year mortgages. I like short mortgages. That's part of the way I know that I have a good deal, is because if you got a 10 or 12-year mortgage and you put 20% down or 25% down and you got more than enough to cover that payment, then you know you're doing something right. If you have to go to a 30-year mortgage or a 20-year mortgage, and you know what I mean, in order to make the payment, then you're probably paying too much for it. That's how I feel. So, but yeah, you're on point there. You get absentee owners that have owned the property for, I would tell you, over 7 years. Okay, if you want to go 15, 20 years, that's safe. It's going to narrow it down to people that probably have the property paid for. And now, why does somebody own or finance? So you guys got to pay attention to this. When I was younger, 10% interest. That's what the banks would pay. You get 10% interest. Banks pay less than 1% interest now. Even if you put $1 million in the bank, they're only going to give you like 1% interest or less. So what that means is somebody that has a piece of property that they want to sell, they're going to be very incentivized to carry a note, because you can pay them 4 to 5% interest on that note. And you can talk them into it, because you tell them, so what are you going to do with the money, if you don't mind my asking? And if they tell you they're just going to put the money in the bank anyways, well, then you say, look, you're going to put your $100,000, let's say that it's a $100,000 property. If I give you $100,000 and you're going to put it in the bank's going to loan me your money, and I'm going to pay them 4%, and they're going to pay you less than 1%. So they're going to make $3,000 a year on your money. Why not you act as the bank and I'll pay you? And then that way you can set them up to, introduce them to owner financing. And now, you know what I mean? Now you get to buy it. And here's the other thing. When you get a note like that, you want to make sure there's no alienation clause. And an alienation clause is like I'm trying to think of the other term we use for it, but basically it's like a clause that says non-transferable. This note is non-transferable, or sometimes they make it transferable with approval. But if they don't write down that the note is not transferable, then that note is transferable. So in other words, you could buy a property, $10,000 down, $90,000 being carried. Turn around and flip it for $120,000, get $30,000 down, and then they assume that $90,000 note. It is assumable unless it has an alienation clause in it. So that's good information to have. I bought a restaurant, and I negotiated a fantastic deal. I think I paid $700,000 for this property, maybe $750,000, and I think I bought it with $50,000 down. But they carried a note for $700,000, and they carried it at, I want to say 3%. 3% on $700,000. So this 3% that they were carrying, imagine the payment on this restaurant at $700,000 finance. My payment was $2,200 a month, and that paid down on the principal still. That's how low that interest was. And so when I flipped that property, I sold it for $980,000, I think. I made about $200,000 on the deal, but I had a note that they could assume. So they assumed my note. Nah, it's easy to get owner financing, Garrett. You just got to condition and talk to people about it. It's not as hard as you think. You can make it happen, I promise. Obviously, people have to have cash if they owe money on the property. If they don't owe money on the property, talking them into taking a note is much easier than you may know. So anyways, it's my experience anyways. So anyways, but so here I got this note, $700,000. The payment's $2,200 a month. That is a fantastically low note. And so when I sold the property, that was such a bargain for the guys that I sold it to. And these guys are my friends too. So basically, they gave me $250,000 down, and they assumed my $700,000 note, $200,000 in my pocket. Okay, so now they've got this and believe me, really, I probably could have charged them $1.2 million for it, to be honest. I mean, at the time it wasn't great, but I was happy with making what I made. But that interest rate, when you can give somebody such a low interest rate, figure 2% on $700,000. What's that? $14,000? That's $14,000 a year. So I was saving them $14,000 a year for the next 15 years. So you do the math on that. That's 140. That sounds like over $200,000 to me. So that made that note really $200,000 better than it would be. So it was like really getting a very discounted note, but it really wasn't a discounted note. It was just a very, very, very great note to assume and take over. One time there was there was a lease. I almost bought this property. I wanted to. Something got in the way of it, but I found a big old huge property that was going out, and they were going to sell it, but I went in and I was talking to the people that owned it, and I got a hold of the lease. These guys were leasing this property that was probably worth 70 cents a foot, and they were paying a nickel a foot, and I think they had about 10 years left. And so my thought, and it was a big company, it was kind of a nationwide company, it was a something barn, knit barn, I don't know what it was, but anyways, I didn't end up doing it. I was actually going to be moving out of that area, but man, it was close. I thought, how wonderful if I could assume the lease and pay a nickel a foot and have the right to sublet it. And I just sublet it for make 45 cents a foot. We're talking about a 20,000 square foot building. So, like I say, the best thing about real estate is there really are no rules. You can create your own, you can design your own rules to a degree. Obviously, you can't break the law and that sort of thing, but what you do, the agreements you make between the owner and yourself, there's no rules. It's whatever you guys agree on. You can make things happen. And so anyways, that's it. I hope you guys learned something here on owner financing. I saw a couple of positive comments there. It really is a wonderful way, and like I say, appreciate Garrett bringing up the absentee owners. That is gold. That is just pure gold. If you're going to write a letter and you're going to write it to somebody that owns the property, but they've owned it for a while. Chances are they'll have the property paid off or more paid down that they can afford to actually sell it under market. Because if you go hit up everybody that's owned a property for only 2 years, chances are they owe almost, if they put 10% down, there ain't enough room to make $1 on there, right? So, hey, thanks, Chaz. I appreciate you tuning in. And so I like this format we're doing. And sorry I started late and kind of screwed things up, but that's life. Somebody's asked me about Canadian real estate, and I can't say I know anything about it. My understanding is very much like our own. So I don't know much about it. I really can't. I know I got a lot of people that tune in from Canada, so I think it's pretty much the same. And people are people, and money is money, and math is math. So it's probably just do the same thing anywhere. Buy it for less than it's worth, and you can do really, really well. So anyhow, we'll do it again here next Wednesday. And I got a daughter in Europe. When she comes back, I'm going to go to take off. I'm going to go to Hawaii. That's the plan anyways. That's where she wants to go, and we'll be going there for a week. But you know what? I almost mailed a deal in Hawaii one time in Maui. In fact, I still don't even quite want to talk about it because I haven't given up hope. I've been working on it for like 15 years now. Anyways, let's see. Do I use the 70% repair rule? No, I don't know what that is. My rule is pretty simple. I do as little as possible. I try to make it look clean, paint it. I do as little as possible on a property to sell it. If I'm going to put in $30,000 on a property, it's probably so I can make an extra $30,000. You know, replacing cabinets and countertops and that sort of thing. You know, man, kitchens are expensive. It's hard to recoup the bucks. It's almost better, you know, put in a real nice floor, repaint the cabinets, you know, just clean those countertops, make them look as good as possible, even if you have to paint them, which is pretty hideous. Yeah, I don't have any hard set rules, Garrett. I'm just all about math. I try to buy everything 70% of value. I try to have at least 30% margin for me to make some money and flip and take it. If I'm gonna have a property that I buy that I got to put a lot of money into, then I'm probably gonna get it for 50 cents on the dollar. That's just how I do it. And you know, I don't find deals every day. You know, the problem is if you keep lowering that number, what you're willing to take in the margin of profit, you're taking away your security, because from the time you buy it, it's like hot potato, right? Somebody throws, you know, our musical chairs. Until you sit down and got a chair, you're exposed. And so when you buy a property that you're going to flip, as soon as you buy it, exposure starts right now. Now the time is running out, because if you choose to hold on to a property, then you're choosing to buy it again. You follow me? In other words, if I got a jet flying over, hope you can hear me. So if you choose to buy a property and somebody says, let's say you pay 100 grand for it, somebody offers you $120,000 for it. Well, if you don't accept $120,000 for that property, then you're buying it. You understand me? That's what you have to ask yourself. And this is a really good lesson, and everybody should think about this, because a lot of times greed gets a hold of you. I want more, I want more, I want more, and I totally relate. Okay, so but when you get a property, I don't care what kind of deal you get on it, when somebody makes an offer to buy it from you, you have to ask yourself, would I buy this property for that amount? You know what I mean? Obviously, you want to steal them, but if you don't sell it, you're basically saying, if I don't sell it for 120 or 1.2 million, whatever, then I'm basically saying, no, I don't want your money, I'll keep it. And if you say you're keeping it, you're saying, I'll buy it. Even though you own it, you just bought it again. Now you bought it for 1.2 million. Or if you turn down 120,000, you just bought it for 120,000. Because you're making the conscious choice to keep it, even though you could get that much money for it. So you basically have bought it. So it's a good one, and it's if you run that exercise on yourself when somebody gives you a deal, you'll be surprised. You may just change your mind. You think, you know what? I'll sell it. I'll sell it. I did it recently on a lot I sold for $110,000 or $120,000. I thought maybe I'd get a little more for it, and then I go, you know what? I would never pay that much for it, and I certainly wouldn't pay, even if I wanted it full price, I wouldn't pay that much for it right now. And so you know what I did? I ran that exercise, and I go, it's a deal, I'll sell it to you. And I got cash for it, and I haven't looked back, and I don't regret it at all. So anyways, hey, I'll close it out here, guys. I appreciate the questions. It's fun to share, and it's really informative. Like I say, the more of us that we're in here, the more questions that we ask that are real estate related, and you know, you guys can relate to each other. I'm happy to share everything that I know. You know, I never mislead you. I'll always tell you everything that I know, and you know, and just try to give you the best advice I can, because, like, again, I'm doing this as much for my sons and my family, and so of course, you know, I appreciate the camaraderie of you guys, you know, hanging in here with me and sharing and listening, and you know, I hope we all make a lot of money, and I'm going to share every deal I make with you. I hope you do the same. And so that's it for now. Flip Anything USA. And thanks, Kristen. Appreciate everybody and the positive comments. And you know, we'll do it again next Wednesday, and we'll just make it a Wednesday thing. In the meantime, you know, I've been sharing these little blurbs during the day without having all the editing, the little live shots. Do you guys appreciate that? Do you want that? Or would you rather me just do a little better production and take my time? Sometimes I'm just kind of impatient. I think, I'll share this, and then I jump on and I do the live deal. So if you got any comments one way or the other, if you like that, just let me know. Yeah, thanks, Raheem. Appreciate it. You know, just let me know what you think about that live stuff on the spot. Sometimes I don't go in quite so much detail. Sometimes there's problems, but anyways, that's it for now, guys. Flip Anything USA. Please share and subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll keep plugging away, and we'll hopefully all make a lot of money. Have a good night.